When the Turtles were sold to Viacom, fans worried that their favorite franchise would lose everything that made it special. However, with the successful launch of a new comic book series and the Nickelodeon cartoon, it seemed like those fears were greatly exaggerated. But was the 2014 movie something fans were right to worry about? Join me in today's video to find out. You know how the story goes. The Turtles were sold to Viacom in 2009, and a live-action treatment was already in the works. From 2010 to 2012, Michael Bay's production company, Platinum Dunes, was in talks with Paramount to take charge of the property. Fans, already bitter about his treatment of Transformers, wanted him out of the franchise. Things got complicated when he announced that the Turtles were now aliens, and the movie would drop the teenage and mutant from the title. A lot of PR damage control was needed, which was mostly undone by the leak of a draft script. Perhaps because of the backlash, or simply because the story was no longer a surprise, the movie was reworked to focus more on April O'Neil, nodding to the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie of 1990. Turtles co-creator Kevin Eastman was involved in the film's development with director Jonathan Liebsman to ease the fans, assuring that the project was in good hands. But was it? Or was Kevin just being nice? The movie was written by Josh Applebaum, Andre Nemec, and Evan Dougherty. Josh and Andre, the writers of the leaked script, had Mission Impossible and Ghost Protocol on their resumes. On the other hand, Evan worked on another 2014 movie, Divergent. While the movies are often called Michael Bay movies, the infamous director was only involved as a producer. His revival of the Transformers franchise prompted Paramount to let Platinum Dunes handle TMNT for the big screen. For directing, Brett Ratner of X-Men The Last Stand fame was a runner-up, but they ultimately chose South African director Jonathan Liebsman. Liebsman had directed movies like Wrath of the Titans and The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. He was only familiar with the Turtles through their cartoons and films, but after reading the first issue of the original run, he began discussions with Kevin Eastman to understand the co-creator's vision. Liebsman was surprised by how hardcore the Turtles originally were, and decided to honor that by making them bigger, stronger, and more badass. What could go wrong? For the character designs, they wanted to leverage technological advancements since 1993, the year of the last live-action movie. They brought in actors Pete Plawczyk, Jeremy Howard, Alan Ritchson, and Noel Fisher to do real-time motion capture, playing alongside their fellow actors while wearing black and white suits. Industrial Light and Magic used all the captured data to animate the Turtles and their facial gestures. The Turtles' appearance was an apparent nod to Michael Zulli's Soul's Winter, aiming for a photorealistic look with a mix of Japanese raiment and modern teenage fashion. Despite her complicated history with Michael Bay, Megan Fox was cast as April O'Neil. It was a significant role for her, and between principal photography and reshoots, she had her second baby. To complete the cast, William Fichtner and Tohoru Masamune were brought in to play the Shredder, which I'll explain in more detail later. Will Arnett played Vernon Fenwick, Mine Noji played Karai, Whoopi Goldberg played Bernadette Thompson, and Danny Woodburn played Splinter. 2 more actors were added to the cast a few months before the movie's release: Johnny Knoxville as Leonardo, and Tony Shalhoub as Splinter. The soundtrack was composed by Brian Tyler, whose main theme was the bass sample for Shell Shocked by Juicy J, Moxie Rhea, Wiz Khalifa, and Ty Dolla $ign, featuring Kill the Noise and Mad Sonic. Mad Sonic was just another artist name for Brian Tyler. The song was kind of an accident. Brian was asked to create a song for the end credits, so he invited Kill the Noise to do an electronic track. When it started to sound like a hip-hop song, they invited their favorite rappers, who were also Turtles fans. The single reached number 2 on the iTunes Hip-Hop Singles chart and obtained platinum certification. But I'll come back to the behind-the-scenes later. Let's focus on the story. April was a reporter for Channel 6, always assigned to feel-good pieces for the news. However, she aspired to be an investigative journalist and had her sights set on the Foot Clan, a criminal organization notorious for stepping over the good people of the city with no regard. While investigating their latest robbery, she discovered they were stealing chemicals used for genetic research, which she recognized thanks to her experience with her late father, a scientist. She questioned one of the victims and learned that another company was also trafficking these chemicals at the same waterfront. Later that evening, April went to the other dock to investigate and caught the Foot Clan red-handed. She wasn't alone though. A strange vigilante threw a container at the clan, forcing them to flee. Although April couldn't capture a picture of the hero in time, she found graffiti on a container wall. The movie never explored why he left this symbol on the scene, but it would be another clue later on. Thinking she had a story worth investigating, she tried to convince her boss to focus on it, but she lacked sufficient evidence to justify spending time on it. Amidst this crime wave, the city renewed its contract with Saks Industries. The city hoped to bring the Foot Clan to justice with their research and security technology. The head of the company, Eric Saks, had been on a crusade against the Foot ever since they robbed his lab and set it on fire. One of the victims of that attack was April's father, who had worked with him. On the villainous side, Karai reported the failed robbery to the Shredder. The Shredder ordered her to capture the vigilante, even if they had to use innocent people as bait. He added that no one would stop them in their quest to reclaim victory and control the city. It's unclear why the Foot Clan needed to rise again, but I'll cover the inconsistencies in Shredder's backstory later. To bait the vigilante, the Foot Clan took people hostage at a subway station. This drew both April and the Turtles to the scene. Karai acknowledged the vigilante as if he were present and demanded he surrender, or they would start killing hostages. There was no reason to believe the vigilante would be there, underground. April endangered everyone's lives by trying to film Karai, which nearly cost her her life. But the Turtles arrived in time to throw Karai against a wall. After a short fight, they tied up most of the foot soldiers and escaped. April followed them to a rooftop, where she took a picture of them with her flash on. The Turtles were alarmed by this, as they weren't supposed to be seen. After getting a good look at them, she fainted. When she regained consciousness, they deleted the photo she had taken. They warned her not to say anything to anyone about their existence, or they would return for her. While the Turtles talked, she heard two of their names, Leonardo and Raphael, and she slowly started to piece together the Turtles' backstories. On their way out, April took another picture of them. Going through her old stuff, April rediscovered her father's notebooks about Project Renaissance. She found the strange symbol there, which in Japanese means family. It's not clear why this symbol was there. She also found old footage of experiments on a rat and 4 turtles. It was revealed in this footage that the scientists were using a canister of ooze from outer space, labeled TCRI. When asked why they were doing this, Eric responded that they were trying to change the world. After seeing baby Leonardo nearly break a glass with his beak, she confirmed that the vigilantes were the turtles she had considered her pets as a child. Baxter Stockman was also seen working with them, marking his only appearance in the movie. At the sewer lair, Master Splinter learned about their encounter with April and ordered them to bring her to the lair for her own safety. April went back to her boss to explain that 6-foot English-speaking turtles were walking around New York and only she had seen them.
I don't mean to laugh, but is there anything else we should know about them?
They're ninjas.
Okay, get out.
This finally got April fired. Taking advantage of their no longer working together, Vernon tried to flirt with her by offering her a ride. He took her to Eric Saks' estate, where she asked him about Project Renaissance and its connection to the 4 turtle vigilantes. Saks explained that the project was a dream that died with her father. Having lost all their research and specimens, they had spent the last 15 years trying to replicate the results. April then showed him a picture of the 4 turtles, prompting him to give her the whole backstory. Eric was born in Japan, the son of a Vietnam soldier who died in the war. Growing up in Okinawa, he was an outsider until a local sensei took him under his wing and saved him by teaching him lessons that he later shared with April's father. Among these lessons was a story from 9th century Japan about an evil warlord who ruled the land. He poisoned the water supply, bringing death and disease. But one day, a hero arose, a great alchemist who discovered an antidote for the poison. This antidote was a cure for all illnesses, but was lost to time. April's father and Eric were trying to recreate that panacea. They developed a mutagen capable of stimulating self-repair on a cellular level. In the event of a chemical attack on New York, This mutagen could reverse its effects. The turtles had the last precious remains of that mutagen running through their blood. April then revealed that she had saved the turtles from the fire. Knowing she would be in contact with them, Sax gave her a card, offering all his resources to find them again. The card had a GPS tracker. Sax then went to see the Shredder to give him the good news. The audience learned that they had a deal. The Foot Clan would gain unlimited power, and Sax would have his money, all thanks to this discovery. Sax also showed Shredder an improved armor with robotics. The turtles found April and took her to their lair. Once she saw their sensei, she recognized him as Splinter. This was when they discovered they had ended up in the sewer because April rescued them from the fire and left them in a storm drain. While not ideal, I guess it was a better fate than leaving them in the fire. Splinter explained that April's father was the one who set the lab on fire after discovering the truth about Eric Sax and his alliance with the Shredder. Over time, while living in the sewers, they continued mutating, and just like April's dad had cared for her, Splinter became the turtles' father. Fearing for their safety, he trained them in ninjutsu, something he had learned from an abandoned book. Splinter then warned April about Eric Sax, who was technically Shredder's son and shouldn't be trusted. At that moment, the Foot Clan broke into the lair. Shredder and Splinter fought, and Splinter barely survived. To save their father, Mikey, Donnie, and Leo surrendered themselves. Shredder delivered a final blow to Splinter and took the three turtles hostage, destroying the lair on their way out. April and Raphael tried to save Splinter, but he implored Raphael to rescue his brothers. Thanks to Donnie's tracker, April and Raph were able to locate the brothers. They then asked Vernon for a ride, who was surprised to discover that the turtles were real. At his estate, Sax gave the turtles his villain exposition while he drained their blood. He planned to release a chemical toxin from the top of Sax Tower that would kill many people and shake world governments to their core. Within a month, the city would become a quarantine zone. Sax would then come in with an antidote to save everyone and become even wealthier. Shredder would then force the city to live under their rule. This last bit doesn't make much sense, but I'll come back to it later. Vernon made his way into the estate without destroying his van. By then, Sax had enough blood to isolate the mutagen and asked his staff to continue draining the turtles' blood. He went back to New York to work on the mutagen. Raphael broke in and was later surprised by the Shredder. The two started fighting, while April injected an impressive amount of adrenaline into the turtles to help them escape. On their way out, they stole an 18-wheeler truck to escape from the clan, which they ended up throwing off a snowy cliff. From there, they went back into the sewer tunnels, returning to the city. At the top of the Sax building, Shredder began setting up his chemical weapon. Downstairs, Sax started isolating the mutagen. This was a gamble, as they didn't properly test the antidote, but what do I know? Once they reached the building, the turtles decided to fight Shredder while April and Vernon went for the mutagen, which could be the key to saving Master Splinter.
MC Mikey.
After a brief elevator scene, the turtles were ready to face the Shredder. Meanwhile, Sax started chasing April and Vernon with a gun. He confirmed that he had killed her father, revealing that her father didn't simply die in the fire. April released some carbon dioxide to distract Sax, and Vernon sacrificed himself to take down Sax. April then escaped with the ooze, but for some reason she ended up on the rooftop, trying to defeat Shredder by using the mutagen as leverage. Shredder got his hands on it, but ultimately fell to his apparent death. After everything was over, Shredder showed signs of still being alive and taking a small mutagen sample. This wouldn't be picked up in the sequel. With some mutagen from an unspecified source, the turtles were able to save Master Splinter's life. Splinter realized he was wrong in keeping them underground. They needed to go out and discover that their true power lay in believing in one another. The turtles then got on their new turtle van, destroyed Vernon's new car with a rocket, and ended the movie with a boob joke during the end credits. The end. Many of the plot holes in this movie were caused by the recasting of the Shredder. Eric Sax was originally meant to be a westernized version of Oroku Saki. William Fichtner, the actor, was initially reluctant to play the part, but was convinced by his nephew and the compelling script. He appreciated that the character wasn't a simple villain and had layers to him. He also found that his beliefs were a little out there, making it a fantastic journey for an actor. Fitchner as a Shredder was an open secret, and he was identified as such in interviews, video games, and promotional materials up to the movie's release. However, before reshoots took place, they realized that casting Fitchner as the Shredder would be perceived as whitewashing. So they decided to change his role, making him second in command to the Shredder, now played by Tohoru Masamune. These reshoots stand out in the movie, and since everything was already filmed, the final product became very inconsistent. The original big reveal was that Sax was the Shredder. By changing things, it suddenly seemed like Splinter knew more than he should have, and Sax and the Shredder were pretty much interchangeable, especially in the scenes where Shredder is in armor. If the original plan was to release the toxin and offer the antidote, that would have been enough. But by adding a second villain, they felt they needed to make Shredder the city's ruler. This plan is weak. Why would they let Shredder rule the city after getting the antidote not only to his toxin, but any toxin? The lack of consistency in the final product makes it look like Sax or the Shredder could be each other's henchmen, with no clear leader. That is, except for the one scene where the two are together in the same room. The changes didn't stop there. A few months before the movie's release, Johnny Knoxville came in to voice Leonardo, replacing Pete Plosick. Johnny's voice feels too mature for Leonardo, and I think he was miscast. He didn't return for the sequel. Another character replacement was Splinter, now voiced by Tony Shalhoub. Perhaps they were always going to replace Woodburn, but Tony's performance didn't quite fit the character. Despite this drama, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles grossed $191.2 million domestically and a total of $485 million worldwide, against a budget of $125 million. The film succeeded at the box office, but didn't impress the critics. To this day, the movie holds a 21% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with an audience score of 50%. Nevertheless, the movie made even more money with merchandising, including Playmates Toys' wave of action figures. So, going back to the beginning of this video, were the fans right to be afraid of this movie? The 50% audience score may hint that the movie was polarizing. However, by 2014, Nickelodeon had proved that they could successfully launch a comic book and an animated series. So, the film itself was their first false step with the franchise. A significant contribution to the polarization was the character designs. In an attempt to make them more realistic, they took away part of the nostalgic appeal, which may have kept many old fans away. Those who weren't deterred by the new maximalist designs witnessed a movie filled with Michael Bay tropes, a nonsensical plot, below-average acting, weird camera pans, an oversaturated color palette, and a lot of lens flares. In defense of these elements, I must say that the quality dropped significantly for the sequel. So, in comparison, this movie could have been worse. But despite the negatives, there were some incredible achievements. The animation of the Turtles was very well done, proving it was possible to do the Turtles in live action. And like every other adaptation of the Turtles, it brought in new fans to the franchise. Fans who probably look back on it with nostalgia as their definitive version of the Heroes in a Half Shell. The movie tried to be different from previous installments. The most obvious change is that unlike other versions where April triggers the plot, here it's the Turtles who trigger the rest of the movie. This aspect was already present in the Blue Door leaked script, which used Casey Jones as the main character. Since April consistently progresses the plot and is present in almost every scene, it's hard not to see her as the main protagonist. The producers should have retitled it April in the TMNT. This isn't exactly a problem with the movie, but if you were expecting to watch a story that dived into the inner conflicts of the Turtles, then this wasn't the movie for that. In the end, April is the most fleshed out character in the film. On the flip side, Shredder is the main antagonist, even if it's only on a technicality, given how the script had to change in reshoots. I wouldn't be surprised if a kid watched the Shredder and armor scenes and thought that was Eric Sachs. There are other characters from the franchise that are completely wasted here. Specifically, Karai and Baxter. If they weren't named in the story or in the credits, you wouldn't even know it was them. Despite its box office success, the movie didn't leave a good enough impression to make viewers return for the sequel. Contracts were signed for 3 films, but the last one never left development hell. With Mutant Mayhem taking both streaming and theatrical releases, and The Last Ronin soon becoming the next live-action movie, there is no more room to continue this universe. In the end, this movie was a breakthrough in motion capture animation and a good demonstration of how a live-action Ninja Turtle movie could be filmed in modern times. Unfortunately, its character design scared away many fans, and the movie series ultimately failed to capitalize on the ongoing success of the Nickelodeon animated series. Nevertheless, you can bet your shell that many Turtle fans out there consider this their favorite version in the franchise, even while knowing all its flaws. To all those fans, happy 10th anniversary! Thanks for watching. See you in the sewers.